Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I would like to review the Catrice Face Palette. I've been using it for quite a while now and I'm ready to share my opinion. So as the name already tells you, this palette contains face products, so bronzer, contour, highlighter and blush. You can find 4 suggestions on how to use the palette here in the back, which I think is quite useful. So it can be used for contouring, draping, strobing or individual perfection. The palette contains 6 powders and 2 creams and it costs about 13 euros, and I think it's suitable only for people with light skin tone, as you will see in a minute. It's called 010 Volume 1, so they might be coming out with more products like this that will be suitable for deeper skin tones, but for now it's only this one. The packaging, you have this sleeve that you can take off, and inside is your palette, which I think is very well made. It's quite heavy, so it doesn't feel cheap at all. And when you open it, there's a nice quite large mirror in it and a sleeve with all the shades in it. You also get a brush that I haven't used before and, well, I don't think I will. So in here you get a bronzer, a contouring powder, 2 blushes, one is shimmery and one is matte. Then you get a powder highlighter and the cream highlighter and the matte powder and the cream. It's supposed to be like a concealer or a cream highlighter or something like that. I'm not wearing any powders on my face yet, so I'm gonna start with concealer. So it's this one, and I'm gonna apply it with a brush on one side and with a finger on the other one. Here's the swatch of the concealer on the back of my hand, and you can see that it's very light, even for me, and I'm about NC15 in MAC shades. So I have some of the concealer on my brush and I will just try to put it on. Do you see how light it is? It looks almost white. So this is how the concealer looks on one side. I think it didn't do a really good job at concealing, and I don't dare to layer it more because it's already starting to get cakey. And it's so light. I mean, what were they thinking? And now I'm gonna use my finger on the other side. Alright, I'm not a fan of this. It's way too light, it almost looks white, and because of that it kinda emphasizes my dark circles, and I would never dare using it as a concealer as it's suggested here. Imagine this white shade somewhere on my face. And I wouldn't even use it as a highlighter because it's just, I don't know, I think it looks off, and it also feels quite heavy and cakey, so I'm not a fan of this one. Let's move on to the cream highlighter before I apply any powders. It's this silvery one over here. Here's the swatch on the back of my hand, and I think it looks quite pretty. I think it looks quite nice, but it does feel a bit heavy on the face, but it's not too bad. I think it's pretty, but the cream is quite thick, so it doesn't blend as easily, and I think it applied a bit patchy. I'm not sure if you can see on the camera, but yeah, it sort of dried down very fast and I didn't have that much time for blending. Now I'm gonna set my under eyes with this cream powder over here. First I'm gonna swatch it for you. I actually really like this powder. It feels very silky and it didn't make my makeup look cakey. Well, the concealer looks cakey from before, but when I used the powder here on my nose and on my pores, it actually made them look smaller. I powdered the rest of my face with another product and now it's time for bronzer. Here is the swatch of the bronzer and I think it's a very pretty shade. Not too warm and not too cool. But the only thing that I don't like is that the pen is very small. I love bronzers in bigger pans because I like to use a large fluffy brush like this one from Real Techniques and really get into it. And with this one I really can't coat this brush evenly and then the application is uneven as well. And that's why I'm gonna use a smaller brush today. I really love the shade of this bronzer and the way it feels on my face. It's very silky, the same as I mentioned for the previous powder, but unfortunately I think it doesn't blend as easily as I would want it to. Maybe it's just the size of the pen because I can't coat my brush evenly as I mentioned before, but yeah, I'm just having some hard times blending. Next I'm going in with the matte blush and I'm gonna use my trusty Real Techniques brush, even though it's also a bit too big for this pen. Here's the swatch of the blush. I'm not a huge fan of this shade because it's a bit too crazy for my taste, but it's not as bad when you put it on the cheeks. So that's the matte blush on my cheeks. It's quite pretty, but maybe just a little bit too bright for my taste. I'm gonna go over it with this Pearly Blush because I would like to show you this one too, and it's more of a blush topper anyway because it's very shimmery. So here is the swatch of the Pearly Blush, and I think it looks more like an eyeshadow or a deep highlighter than a blush. I actually haven't used it as a blush before, so let's try it for the first time together. Yeah, it does feel a lot like putting highlighter all over my cheeks, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I think this shade would make a really pretty eyeshadow. It's actually the one that I'm wearing on my eyes today, and I'm wearing bronzer in my crease and the contour powder in my outer corners, so I think this palette would be great for traveling because it can double also as an eyeshadow palette. Like I'm not glittery enough already, let's put some highlighter on top. This highlighter is actually my favorite product from this palette. It applies beautifully, it wears for a very long time, and I absolutely love the shade. So here is the swatch of the highlighter. It's here in the bottom, I hope you can see it, but I think camera doesn't do it justice. Let's just apply it so you can see how it looks. I hope you can see how beautiful it looks. I know it's a bit much because I used that Pearly Blush before, but I hope you can see how beautiful this highlighter looks. I really wish they would sell it separately. For the end, let's chisel out my cheekbones with some contouring powder, and I'm gonna use my Real Techniques brush. I like the shade of this contouring powder. I think it really makes a nice shadow because it's not too warm. Here is the swatch. It's this one over here. But I think it does look just a tiny bit muddy on my cheeks, so I'm not the biggest fan of it. Let's conclude this video with a short summary. So the contouring powder is a very nice cool tone shade, but use it with a light hand because it can quickly appear muddy on the face. Then the contouring powder is also a beautiful, not too warm, not too cool shade, but it doesn't apply as evenly, even though it feels very silky and very smooth. But yeah, because the pen is so small, it's hard to get a brush evenly in there, and therefore the application is not that even either. Then the matte blush, I really like it, but the shade is a bit too bright for my taste. Then this Pearly Blush, I would never use it as a blush, but I think it makes quite a nice eyeshadow. The matte powder is very nice, it feels very silky on the face and it doesn't make your makeup look cakey. The highlighter, again, it's my favorite product. It's not too subtle and not too strong, and it's a beautiful golden shade. This concealer highlighter kind of thing, nope. I think I dislike this one the most because it looks almost white on the face. It looks cakey and heavy and, well, just no. And the cream highlighter is quite nice, but it blends a bit harder because it's so thick. So overall, I don't think this palette is really worth purchasing because out of all these, I really love just this highlighter. Again, I really wish they would sell it separately. So that's it for today. I hope this review was helpful and see you in my next video. Bye! Powders and color, because I usually prefer more subtle color.